Hello everyone, and welcome to the third episode of this series where I discuss Wim Winter's whole beat theory. If you're new to these videos, I suggest you check out the previous two that I made. Links will be in the description. In the first video of this series, I talked about Adolf Marx and his take on Beethoven, and how Wim completely disregarded everything that Marx wrote in the book that Wim was discussing. This video is about the same author, and his rather important book, The Universal Book of Music. If one uses Adolf Marx to prove a certain point, this is surely a book one has read. And since Wim have brought him up in a few of his videos, I'm sure he knows about this book. It's a quite fundamental book, in the sense that it covers pretty much everything one needs to know about music. So clearly it also covers the metronome. As the metronome was somewhat new, it's really very detailed. He explains how it's built, so a pendulum with a weight that makes it move, and that it has a table behind it divided into 110 degrees, between 50 and 160, and so on. It's so carefully explained, almost as if he knew that someone about 150 years later would misuse his documents for personal gain. He writes the following. If the regulator, so the weight, of the pendulum to be placed opposite to either of these divisions, the pendulum will vibrate so many times in a minute as the number indicates. If a metronome is set to a quarter note 60, it means that it vibrates, as he calls it, 60 times per minute. So Adolf Marx is then a closed case. There is no way he is referring to this double beat theory as Wim wants him to do. A fair point would be to correctly point out that Adolf Marx wasn't the inventor of the metronome, so maybe he was just wrong.
The 1816 directions for using Mälzel's metronome is one of the most important, if not the most important source on the use of the metronome.
Anyway, it turns out that Mälzel describes it pretty much the same way as Adolf Marx does, so there is no point on going through it again. However, he also wrote another text on the subject. It's a rather long text, so I'll just make a summary, and then I'll put a link to that document in the description. The text reads that the metronome is divided into three parts: slow, moderate, and fast. These are then again divided into three parts each: very slow, slow, and not so slow; very moderate, moderate, and somewhat fast; and lastly, moderately fast, fast, and very fast. Then comes the more interesting part. The text reads that he chooses number 80 as the foundation of this explanation, as it combines all these three basic divisions, depending on whether you count 8 notes, quarter notes, or half notes. He says that 80 8 notes is slow, 80 quarter notes is moderate, and 80 half notes is a fast tempo. He later writes that if you put the metronome on 80, counting in half notes, 40 bars of a normal 4/4 will take a minute. If we put a metronome on 80, counting half notes, 40 bars will still take 1 minute. So there you go. The inventor of the metronome explains how to use his device, which coincides with the way we use it today. So while that should be the end of it, it's not going to be. So I see you next week for another episode of this week's Wim. Thank you for watching and have a great day.